All right, so we're going to try to do something new. So I'm going to go over some of the stories that I've seen throughout this past week that made me think that this is something interesting. This is something that I should pay attention to from now on. So this first story is talking about UPS experimenting with autonomous vehicles in Arizona. So there's this route between Phoenix and Tucson that UPS is actually testing out their autonomous vehicles. This is a great story. I've been wanting to hear something along this line. I'm sure there's probably truckers that are thinking that computers are out to get their jobs at this point. It's always been a thing. Hopefully there is somebody that's actually riding along with this to help ensure that things are on the up and up. I wonder what the safety features behind this are. Since it is going down the highway, I would think that there's not a lot of obstacles in the way. And again, it's in Arizona, so there's not a lot of things that actually happen out here. I think monsoon seasons during what is it, July through September? I think that's what it was. And usually the monsoons happen, like big huge downpour of rain happens starting after 4 o'clock until somewhere around 7 o'clock, and then it just dies out, and then there's no rain after that. If you can make sure that the vehicles are not going through weather kind of like that, I think that's probably a good thing because you already have enough distractions already itself. People trying to cut these vehicles off. They're not happy, doing all sorts of stupid things. They're risking their life to see if the computer's going to figure it out and react accordingly. But you can't make a vehicle of this size and this weight stop in 2 feet. It's impossible from 60 miles per hour or 70 miles per hour or 80 miles per hour. It's just not going to happen. But I do think it's a sign of the times where autonomous vehicles are actually starting to be a thing. Do I really think that they're going to work in colder climates? I kind of don't think so. I think unless they figure something out with a battery where batteries right now start holding less and less of a charge if they're cold. So if they can figure a way to get around that, maybe. Maybe. But then you have the other weather variables like ice. You can't predict ice. Either it's slick or it's not. And even then, is it always slick or is it spotty? How is your vehicle going to compensate for that at that point? Who knows? So cool that they're gung ho about that in a more stable climate. That's cool. Second story I got is about Frank Abagnale saying that crime is 4,000 times easier today than it was before. So I had the chance to actually listen to him in Scottsdale at a conference that I went to last year. He was a pretty good guy to listen to. He talked about his upbringing, all the shady things he had to do when he was younger. They weren't illegal at the time. Now they are, actually. But what he did, what he had to do to get by in those days. And some of the stuff he wasn't proud about, but he had to do them. And he talks about how he ended up getting into the FBI. Like they reached out to him to say, hey, do you want a job with us? And now he's surrounded by a whole bunch of people like the kind of people that were hunting him down, as you can see in the movie. I haven't seen the movie before because everybody always foxifies things, so it might not be true to the story. I know he had a part to help shape the story, but was it always interesting to the point that everybody wanted? No, I'm sure they had to embellish some things about that. But this is a story that talks about how even he thinks that with the way technology is now, it's a lot easier to get into crime. So I'll put that in the show notes or the notes below. Phishing. So this is another story about how phishing campaigns use Google Drive to bypass email gateways. I think this is tied with another story right here. Yes. Nope. This one right here. So let's tie both of these together. So Office phishers move to enterprise AWS landing pages. So this has DocuSign, and at the last job I worked at, we saw a whole bunch of phishing campaigns that would actually occur from time to time. Many of the ones I saw that were not legit, they always had a link to DocuSign. I don't know how secure they are with their security on their back end. I don't know. I've never used a DocuSign document in my life, to be honest. And I try to stay away from stuff like that. They were all pointing back to Google Drive, which this is what this one is trying to do. At my last job, Google Drive was actually blocked from our whole corporate environment. You just couldn't get to it. It was impossible. Not even the IT people could find a way around it. It was blocked for everybody. During that phishing campaign, I was looking at some of the emails at the time, and one thing that stood out to me was the email address that I was actually sending the email was not matching the email address on the outside of the email, the one that people would normally see, and they would think that it's actually coming from that. It never came from the same exact email. And that, I understand that there's probably fictitious emails sending emails out as, sorry, that was an emergency vehicle that passed by. So I understand there's emails that get sent out saying that, like a do not reply email address, or even me, I was able to send stuff as the help desk, even though it was actually coming from my email address. So I understand about that kind of stuff, but this is like on the outside of the email, it was saying that it was coming from a personal email address, someone that person actually knew. So it was like that person's address book was actually getting hijacked to that point, which probably was the case, but all of them were clients, and that's kind of hard to say, hey, I'm your vendor, and I just noticed that I started getting a whole bunch of emails that were not legitimate from your stuff. Could your IT team take a look at your guys' computers, because we think that there might be something going on over at your company. That's kind of hard to do. Kind of hard, kind of hard to tell the next person over that their grass is brown instead of green, and they should take care of it. It's kind of hard. So another phishing campaign that we ran into last year, which was really good, was because Google Docs was actually banned from our corporate environment, that there was a whole bunch of people that were saying, I need to get to this invoice, because they were in sales. I need to get to this invoice. I need to get to this invoice. And I got one of those calls. I immediately said, hey, is this person a person that should be sending you an invoice to begin with? Have you ever gotten an invoice from them before? And they said, well, no, I haven't ever heard of this person before, but I needed to look at this invoice to see if it's legit. I'm like, no. Okay, well, I didn't tell them no. I was like, okay, well, let's look at this a little bit more. So I started looking at the email itself. Everything looked legit. I was amazed by how real this actually looked, until I got to the end. the end had a button to log into that person's personal Office 365 account. First of all, Office doesn't do that. Never. Never is there a link like that that's generated from Microsoft that looks like a physical button, or looks like a button that you can click on to log into your Office 365 account. So that was already fishy itself. At one point, Microsoft was using the orange text, but it didn't look like the text that it was before. And it said Office 365 on it. I'm like, something's definitely wrong with that itself. And I looked at it a little bit more and I was like, hey, so it's coming from Office 365. And I work remotely from everybody else that I work with, like in the IT department. So everybody was getting calls about this invoice all at the same time. And they were chatting about it. They were saying stuff in text because they were all on calls. They couldn't say it out loud, but they could say it in text. And then I came into the conversation, and I asked everybody, where is the link that it's trying to send everybody to in the email to log in? Everybody replied Office 365. Then I proceeded to ask everybody, how do you spell Office 365? And all of them thought I was dumb. Only one person responded, and they spelled it out for me. I said, that's great. So you don't spell it 0FF, and I continued on and I finished it off. And the other person I was responding to me, he goes, well, who would spell it like that? Immediately, I sent a picture of what I typed into Notepad of the difference between OFF and 0FF, and right next to the picture of the person's computer that I was remoted into that had the email up at that point. I'm like, one of these things does not look like the others. And I had right next to them which one, like OFF, and then everything else. And I put hyphen O, like capital O, and then 0FF hyphen 0. And I spelled out 0 right next to it. I was like, which one does it look like? Everybody goes, who would look at that anyways? Like, that's the immediate response I got back from my IT team that I work with. That was their response. And I came back at them to say, well, I would. Every single one of them said, you're wasting your time. Why would you do that? Even the IT director actually said the same thing. He jumped in the chat just to tell me that. But if it's to protect the corporate environment, which how many different computers probably could have gotten infected at that point? I'm glad that Google Docs was blocked off because there was no way for her to do that. Because even clicking on the link was trying to go to Google Docs. It was not going to Office 365 to log in, which was amazing. Completely amazing. But that was one of the things over at my last job that kind of, I wasn't sure. I wish there was more training for phishing emails that people could go through or were tested on, because it really would help with even people at home, like their personal emails at home. Like, what's a phishing email site and what's not a phishing email site? What's legit, what's not legit? What do I look for? This, I went over with the person that I had on the phone. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. So I brought up 3 major things. I'm like, strike out on all 3 of these things, and no, I'm not going to help you out with this. You call up the person that sent you this email and figure out if they sent that to you or not. If not, I'll stay on the phone and we can conference everybody together and see if this is a legit email. One person was mad enough that actually did that. They had me on the phone while they called up the person. The person on the phone ended up saying, well, no, I never sent anything like that. Why would I send stuff like that anyways? All of our stuff is automated with your company anyways. The person apologized to their client and they let them go. At the same time, they came back at me. They were like, well, I don't know. How do you know? And I was like, okay, those are the three. And I repeated the same three things. I was like, this is why it's not legit. This is a phishing email. So I wish there would be more training that companies would either pay for or conduct on site to try to get their people up to speed. I know the last company I worked for, it was a company of around 1,200 people. So imagine if this was going out to, let's say, maybe 10% of those people. So that's 120 people. So you have 120 different opportunities to actually infect the network. And all you need is just one to actually go through. And everything can, not saying it will, but it can spiderweb throughout the whole corporate environment and hit all 1,200 people. Not to mention the data behind the company itself. So let's move on. Let's definitely move on. So yeah, there's another story right over here talking about how there's a remote access Trojan that's actually going through North American hotel industry, that it's hitting up things and downloading what it can. I think somebody compared it over to Eternal Blue from last year, where from what I've seen, it was piggybacking off a vulnerability in SMB1. So if you had SMB2 or higher enabled in your network, it wasn't able to propagate throughout the network to infect anything. But this is like an NSA tool. This is something that they were using before that got leaked. So first of all, why was the NSA using that? And somebody weaponized it to start going through everything. So patches, and more patches. Stay up to date on software. Same thing that we get told all the time. So this next story talks about Google. They had a study released this past week, which was capturing data through their own Google password checkup Chrome extension, saying how 1.5% of website logons are already illegally hacked passwords. Me, myself, I don't trust anything like this. I don't have any extensions installed on my computer or even any of my web browsers. It kind of irks me whenever I saw that there were computers that actually had extensions installed, and most of the time people didn't even know what they were. They just helped out for one purpose and they never went back to it again. But they still stay on it. I don't know why you would do that. I wish it was blocked off from the environment that I worked in before, but people could still install whatever they wanted, like as a Chrome extension. It made no sense. It made absolutely no sense. Plus, giving up your password to somebody else or something else to check to see if it's been used in a previous hack password scheme, to me that seems contradictory, because you're providing your password to another organization that you're not sure if they're 100% legitimate or if they get hacked or not. Where's the responsibility behind them to actually determine, hey, I need to disclose this information that we got hacked to all the people that put information up to that site to check. I think GDPR actually puts some provisions behind the people in Europe to check on that. But in the United States, I don't think there's anything protecting the normal everyday person, which is kind of scary. Definitely kind of scary to see a story like this, or even at the first of the year, whenever there's a list of commonly used hacked passwords that people should not be using. It almost happens every single year, like at January 1st, it always gets released. And they're like, okay, these are the most commonly used passwords over the past year. Don't use them. Use something else that's more secure. And for about 2 weeks, maybe a month, there's a push on people trying to get stories about new passwords pushed out. Right now, it's August, and I don't think there's any stories coming out right now about secure passwords or protected safer, not, I will not say safe because nothing's safe, but safer passwords. So yeah, this is my, like I said, this is my own opinion, is I would never use something like haveibeenpwned.com, because how would you know if they're going to be legit and if they're going to report and let you know when they've been hacked themselves? Do they have a right, or do they have a responsibility to the community to do that? They should, but are they gonna? So let's go on to the next story here. So this is talking about deepfakes and how easily it is to manipulate the consciousness of America at this point. I think it mainly focuses on America. Anymore, fake news is actually a thing. I know, as much as Trump says it over and over and over again, that when you hear something enough times, at some point you kind of become deaf to that. You don't hear it anymore. You don't think it's a thing. But it is. So I think there's one point in this story where it said anybody can be a journalist. A couple years ago, to be a journalist, you need to be trained to gather leads, cite your resources, and to the best of your ability, honestly and ethically develop your story. That was a while ago. This back here, this paragraph right here, now it's on your screen. It says, if just writing an article or sending an email can lead to free money or influence the masses, what if we were to see a world leader say something on video which would seem to prove that he or she said a certain quote that was attributed to him? So it goes, I know there's AI technology like Lyrebird or even face swapping that you can do at this time, that you can make anybody say anything and make it sound legit. Pretty much like I think it was a couple months ago, Joe Rogan was talking to, I think, Elon Musk, and they were briefly talking about deepfakes, and said that he will be amazed whenever somebody goes through all the archives of the Joe Rogan experience and produces a deep fake from that. A couple days later, somebody actually did. They ended up making Joe Rogan say something and start talking about a subject that he never ever talked about before, nor would he. I think it was about it was about chimpanzees playing baseball or something like that. For the most part, it sounded legit. It really sounded 100% legit, but there was a couple times where it didn't sound 100%, but if you weren't looking for it, I don't think you would have heard it. So it's only going to be a thing during this next upcoming election that's going to happen. People need to be people need to keep their heads on and think for themselves. They shouldn't just rely on whatever is being told to them and just regurgitating that and saying, "Hey, this is gospel" at this point, and ignoring everybody else. I think it's important to go through the information yourself. If you don't feel like you're qualified to actually know about that, learn about it. Like there's always a resource on that you can search in Google or some other different website where you can start trusting a place that you trust itself on how to learn about something that you didn't know before. Not everybody is skewed to think a certain way. That's a bad way to think about it. Otherwise, why would you go on Facebook? Facebook is so bad. Don't trust like anything you see on Facebook. Just don't. Just look it up from the source. Just definitely look it up from the source. So let's move on before I just get stuck on that. So there was a talk at DEF CON about how somebody changed their license plate to a vanity one that said null on it in California. And for the first year that he had it, everything was fine. The second year when he went to renew it, that's when he started having problems and started getting all these tickets for $37, $60, $76, or $74, $80. And he had to keep on fighting them and say, "Hey, you know what? It's not me." But it took him a while to figure out that null, N-U-L-L, was actually being used in the computer program for any ticket that didn't have a home to actually go to. It was actually being forwarded to null to give it a place to reside at that point. So when this guy, he thought he was smart, he thought he was funny, decided to have a vanity license plate that was actually N-U-L-L for null, of course, the link was going to be associated between all those tickets that were piling up onto a null bucket over to the actual physically spelled out N-U-L-L. So everything started going into that. I think at one point this guy had 35,000 to 80,000 tickets assigned to him, which he has, whenever he gets a new one, he has to call them up and say, "Hey, this isn't me," let them know. But he had a talk over at DEF CON to talk about that, so that was kind of interesting. This other one from Wired, it's talking about Dominos and disability and people with disabilities. So there's a guy that's currently suing Dominos about not being able to order through Domino's website. This person is blind. Domino's is actually saying that there are alternative ways that this person can actually order through the internet, but that goes against the American Disability Act. I think that's what it was. Americans with Disabilities Act that was signed by George H.W. Bush quite a few years ago. Almost 30 years ago. My bad. Wow, was it really 30 years ago? Wow. So the story talks about how this person is actually suing Domino's, saying that they've made it too hard, that it doesn't work with their particular mobile app that they can use to actually order a pizza online through Domino's website. So based on this act, it says that no business may discriminate against any segment of the population. So that includes people that are blind. So I'm with that. I'm pretty much with that. I'm pretty much with the fact that Domino's says, hey, we made other ways that you can actually order online. I'm with that. So I'm kind of torn. I don't know what side of the fence to actually go on. I've read pretty much this whole story, and I don't know. I'm glad somebody else is going to decide this for me. But it's a good read. It's a good read to try to see what side of the fence you're actually on. For sure. So this next story from Medium talks about being a maker and what it takes for being a maker, like the kind of mindset you have to have and determination and all the different things that you have to instill within yourself to just get by. This image itself is actually pretty... I like this image. It speaks to how I'm looking at some of the projects, the AI projects I'm looking at right now. So it says, I know it sucks. I'm working on it. Says everyone all the time. The projects I have that I'm looking to work on over the next year, and it's probably going to be a rolling year, to be honest. The whole time, the whole progress from start to finish for each project that I have in mind, I expect to add features or remove features as I deem necessary at that point in time to make it what I want that thing to actually do at that point in time. Is everything going to be 100%? No, but I'm going to try my best to get everything there. If not, I'm going to keep on trying to learn and learn and learn and learn until I get it there. Until I get it to a point that I'm content with and I'm happy with. Chances are there's going to be a couple things that are going to be up to the point that I'm mentally able to get to at that point. And then I might need to step away from it. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. And then come back to it and say, you know what? Let's come back to this. And I have a better idea now. And I take it in a different direction and it becomes better than what it was before. That's a thing. So hopefully that's going to be my mindset going on with all those things I'm thinking about right there. When I was reading this actually made me think about the girl that made a truck Tesla. So in this, she had a TED Talk. Actually, before we look at the truck, let's look at the TED Talk first. So in the TED Talk, she talks about why it's important to make useless things. In this TED Talk, she talks about all these different things that she makes. Like this right here. Oh, let's turn off the closed caption. Turn that off. Okay. So she made a vest that is made out of googly eyes. That's all they are googly eyes on her vest. Does it serve a purpose? It's a vest? Do the eyes do something specific? No, they don't. But she talks about how all these different things that she makes, not all of them are something important. Like this, I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, this is something to brush your teeth. But why would any sane person actually make a helmet that actually brushed your teeth? Are you that lazy to actually do that? I've even seen handicapped people that have no arms be able to brush their teeth with their feet. It's a thing. I've seen it before. Maybe it's somebody that doesn't have arms and feet. Maybe that would help out for them. I don't know. But then how would they get the helmet on? So this ended up making me think about the Tesla truck that she created. So let's stop that video. And she was actually fortunate enough to actually be featured on Popular Mechanics, like their website. This is their exact website. So she had an electric pickup. She was able to, oh God, ads.
I don't know if this is going to be
create. Turn off the music or sound on that. So what she did is she took a Model 3, chopped off the back of it, constructed like the back end to be pretty much a truck at that point. And it's the first one that's ever been created like that. So let's see. That was her whole mind frame. They were shooting for something like that. So let's see if we get the video to show what it looks like for all the people that don't know what it looks like right now. So the interior, the dash looks fine. The side panel, I don't know. I'm not a car person. The side panel stuff like that goes on the door, that's not there anymore because that doesn't fit. I think it was made out of plastic. That's a pretty good looking truck, like from the outside, and then from the inside, it looks pretty impressive too. So my question is, why would she have a glass sunroof on top of that has a like storage on top? I don't know. That seems kind of weird. But anyways, this looks functional. This looks legit. This looks like something that I could see rolling down the street, to be honest. I thought that was kind of cool. This is definitely what I want to end this video with. So it's kind of cool. It's functional. Can I see myself driving one? No. But I'm sure there's other people that would. So if this gets over to the point, Okay, so I'm going to end it there. Thanks for watching, and hopefully if I have enough stuff, maybe there's going to be an episode next week about this. So thanks for watching.